The first one of these two topics around this is about data. Data, if you've got an American keyboard. So the thing with data is like AI gorges itself on data. It needs data to work. It uses heaps and heaps of data. And until now, the priority has been collecting data, which is good. And we still need to, we shouldn't stop doing that. But now we're looking at how we can connect it and use it to help AI help us make better, more well-informed decisions. Okay, so don't stop collecting data, but look at how you're cleaning up the data, how you're connecting it to AI tools. There's no point having this data sitting in silos that AI can't use. Earlier this year, I did some work with Gartner, speaking to Gartner clients about AI, and this is one of the analysts at Gartner, and he said this, like in the past, the only people who could do meaningful analytics with data are people who had large organizations, lots of resources, deep pockets, the ability to build things themselves. Is not true anymore. So even if you're part of a smaller organization or even a small business owner, you could run, use data and analytics. You could run AI on your data for you can buy these $20 a month, $50 a month subscriptions to really powerful AI tools that can work on that data. I will give you an example of a conference I spoke at last year for a large organization. I was speaking to their leadership team. They were having a leadership forum, and I was the opening speaker. But it turned out that I wasn't the first person on stage. The first person on stage, the CEO, came on, not just to introduce me, but he said, I want to introduce you to a group of students from Curtin University, one of our unis here in WA. And we, over the last 6 months, have been sponsoring them doing these data hackathons where we ask them to solve projects. They can pick some projects and solve it. This team won that competition. So in addition to the prizes they got there, we've invited them here today to solve a real problem in our organization. And so before he introduced me, he brought these students up and he said, look, we'd like you to help us with predictive maintenance on their equipment. So they have a whole bunch of equipment in different locations, and they wanted to find some way of predicting when that equipment would break down or need maintenance, so they could fix it before it broke down, because obviously prevention is much cheaper than actually fixing it when it's broken. So they said, we're going to give you all access to all our data, and we're going to give you the rest of the day, go away and solve the problem. And then he said, now welcome Gihan Perera, keynote speaker, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, these students came back and they had created in a day an AI-powered dashboard showing all the equipment in the organization and the current status, and if there were any faults, or predicting that there might be faults. So they solved the problem in a day. And at the end of the day, the boss said to me, he said, you know what? It would have taken us 3 months to even get approval for us doing that project in-house. And these kids, these young adults, they solved it in a day. Okay, so these sort of things are possible when you give people access to data. So if you are the CTO or CIO or the head of IT, you may not be the best person to be running these projects. There may be some other people in your team that don't have to be young people, but quite often they are. There might be these people who are absolutely able to solve problems much faster than you could do if you let them go off and solve it and then come and bring it back, to Peter's point, and bring it back into the core operations of the organization. Okay, so look at doing that. Look at ways that you can make that happen. Also going back to my story that I told you earlier about when I was studying at uni and I did a computer science thesis. So my thesis, and I don't get many opportunities to talk about what I did at uni, so I'm taking the opportunity to do that now. My thesis, as I said, was about AI, and it was about AI trying to teach robots how to pick up objects. Okay, that was it. So how to use AI to train a robot to pick up stuff. So you can imagine that picking up something like a coffee cup requires a certain grasp to hold it steadily, especially if it's full. This one's not, but it requires a certain level of skills to know how much pressure to apply, how to move your fingers. And it's a bit different from, here's my award from the Professional Speakers Singapore, but picking up something like this is a little bit different. It's more slippery around the edges. You're not going to grasp it the same way. So my thesis was training this AI, training the robot with AI to be able to figure out how to pick up things. And it was quite complex. We take it for granted now because we've had years and years and experience of picking up things, dropping them, and learning from that. But it's quite complex, and I was doing like differential calculus and physics and a whole bunch of stuff to be able to do that. And it's a difficult problem, so much so that it hasn't really been fully solved yet. But a couple of years ago, some people at Harvard, some researchers, came up with a solution to this problem. And this is what they did. They said, let's forget about the differential calculus. Let's just give it more fingers. And so they created this thing which is like an octopus, which with its tentacles could just wrap around something, and kind of didn't matter whether the physics was right or the maths was right, because it had so many fingers that it would be able to pick up pretty much anything. Okay, and I thought it's a really clever solution to what I was struggling with 35 years ago. And the reason I'm sharing this is because AI is like that now. The software behind AI doesn't have to be particularly complex. So, I mean, it is like way beyond my pay grade and for most people in the room, but it doesn't have to be. What it does need is lots and lots of good quality, high quality data. Because the more data you give it, the dumb AI will be able to learn from that and then become smart AI. It's actually how we learn. How we learn as toddlers. We learn about things by just trying, experimenting over and over and over again, and we're pretty dumb. But by doing it over and over again, we become smarter. So this is why data is so important in AI.